Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. We are trending higher in a normal trend pattern. I've drawn a trend channel here with the latest trend line and its upper band. You can see we're climbing a series of stair-step support and resistance, and it's all just a very nice normal bull market. A lot of the recent scares, the phony baloney Goldman oil scare and those sorts of things, didn't really affect silver too much. So silver's just marching to its own drummer, and that's to be expected because a lot of people have asked me about the dollar and the value of the dollar. I don't really care about the value of the dollar, because the dollar is a worthless piece of paper and the dollar index is a worthless index that measures worthless pieces of paper against other worthless pieces of paper. So I don't really look at it too much, don't really care. This index, the silver index, is the most important index because it's an inflation and a deflation index. So it's projecting the odds of the dollar losing value either to inflation or default, and it's also its own price setting mechanism for the underlying, which is silver, which is under any circumstances tremendously undervalued. So most people think, and I'm not sure why they do this, but they approach silver as an inflation play. I don't view silver as an inflation play. In fact, I view the inflation aspect of silver as the third play in silver. The first play that I see in silver is as the most undervalued commodity out there that you can buy. So silver just happens to be an incredible metal that has so many uses, and the stockpiles of it have disappeared. It's now becoming an investment metal, and so that's the number one story. I have often compared silver to rhodium. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see silver go to $500 and nothing else really even move. That's how strongly I believe in that story. Next, silver is a deflation story. Secondly, it's a deflation story. When I talk about deflation, I mean default. I mean the failure of pieces of paper to pay off, the reneging of debt obligations. Silver is a precious metal, and therefore it is no one's debt obligation, therefore it cannot be defaulted on. Third of all, I would cite the inflation play, the loss of value in the dollar and people flocking to silver and gold. And I would say gold is just as much an inflation hedge as silver is. So for me, the inflation story is actually the third most important story in regards to silver. Wanted to look at our option that we've been following. You can see we're down to 16 cents. Well, 15 bid and 16 ask. We've gone to 112,000 open interest, so our 6,000 volume that we saw yesterday was pretty much piggybacking of that trade by others. That would appear to be the case. Now, there's a very good video. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I'll go ahead and put the link by Raw Doglet, where he talks about this sort of option play and many of the times in the past when he's piggybacked these types of plays and they amount to nothing. In fact, he said every time he's ever done it, they've gone to zero. And I believe him. I've spent a long amount of time in the stock and futures markets, and I've played a lot of options and a lot of futures, and anybody who knows anything about options knows that 95% of options expire worthless. So I'm willing to lay, I'm not willing to lay any money, but I'm willing to lay odds. I would say there's a 95% chance or higher that this option goes to zero. I don't expect this to be anything. A lot of people have a lot of people have seen something important here. I don't see anything here. After all, this is just $1 million. And $1 million is just a drop in the bucket when you talk about the amount of money these people are talking about wasting. And I wanted to use that to segue into a topic I wanted to address. We've got a lot of talk about the national debt and the deficit, and Obama came out and gave a budget. Zero Hedge has the text of this thing here. And if you remember, the Republicans managed to pass a continuing budget for this year, which ends fiscal year in September, and supposedly cut $38 billion. And it's really boring. If you followed this stuff for a long enough amount of time, you know that it's all just smoke and mirrors, and it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense and garbage, and these people are just lying through their teeth about all that. It's just a waste of time to even follow it, because spending has always gone up, the deficit has always gone up, and the debt has always gone up. So these politicians are just playing games, and I'm going to show you how they're playing these games. This is one of my favorite charts. I used this in an earlier video. The blue line is the continuous rise in federal spending. You can see it just goes up, 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 and up. Now, this red line is revenues. These are tax revenues. So you can see revenues actually peaked in about 2000. And at that time, you had the dot-com crash. They pumped up a real estate bubble between here and about here, and they couldn't quite get revenues to increase, maybe just a little bit, and then crash. We crashed down in revenues. So I would guess that the state revenues look something similar to this. We've never really gotten back to our peaks in revenues. So if you're just looking at revenue, we are still in either a recession or a depression as far as revenues go. But anyway, these debates that we're having, so-and-so says he's going to save $4 trillion over 10 years. So-and-so says he's going to save $2 trillion over 28 years. This is all just nonsense. You wouldn't run your... Imagine if you were running your budget like that. You wouldn't. You'd just simply say, okay, how much are we going to take in this year? Oh, we're going to take in 2.5. Well, we took in 2.15. And things haven't gotten better as we expected, so let's just say they stay flat. So we're going to take in 2.15 trillion next year. Okay, fine, that's all we spend. Done. So you tell the people who have the programs, and I don't really care who you are, here's the amount of money you have. Your percentage is cut by 35%. This is the amount of money you have. So you tell the Department of War, as we call it, the Defense Department, you get 65% of what you got last year. You tell whatever departments they are, this is what you get. So this is what you would do if you were serious about cutting spending. Well, these people aren't serious about cutting spending at all. They're playing games. And this is going to lead to a default or a collapse of the US dollar, one or the other. It's inevitable because these politicians will not stop spending money, and there's no solution to this. They trot out these dog and pony shows about once every 4 to 8 years. We've heard it all before 100 times. It never comes to pass. Some crisis comes in the future and spending goes through the roof. And so we're reaching an inflection point. We're reaching a crisis stage. It's all here in the chart, and silver knows it. Silver and gold both know it, but silver is by far the better deal because silver also has that incredible fundamental supply and demand picture going for it, where even if these debt problems didn't exist, because they've suppressed the price for so long, silver is going to explode in price. And remember, at $40, silver is still $10 below its nominal high, and it's $80+ below its inflation-adjusted high. So silver's going to continue to explode. the MACD's rolling over to the upside. We may get a failure here, and we may go out to the 4 hour. We're on the 4 hour actually. We may go out to this 8 hour and continue down. You can see it is resetting, but it's taken very little price move to reset. So it's a very healthy market. I don't see anything that's going to stop silver from rising from here. Next stop's going to be $45 to $50. I don't know how long it's going to take to correct through time, if it does correct through time, or if it does maybe a little bit sharper move down and then a move up. But all signs are go for silver, and the fiscal situation is dire. They are not serious at all about dealing with it. It's a complete charade, a dog and pony show, and the politicians are going to spend us into oblivion, and there will either be hyperinflation or a complete collapse of the dollar. And at that point, you're going to want to look at, see what silver's worth. But until then, you don't even want to bother. Just keep stacking. Talk to you next time.